Well, hi everybody. Ooh, that's a loud mic. How is everyone doing today? Good. The sun came out. Hello in Vancouver. It was great. It was rainy yesterday and then it just did it all and stopped. And now we get this. So thank you for spending your afternoon with us today. We have a really exciting topic today. We are going to talk about windows. And the reason why this is such an exciting topic is because I don't think I've ever met anybody that ever said, hey, please design me the darkest space in the whole wide world. Like, I think we can all agree, show of hands, we all love natural light, right? Like, yes, absolutely. All right, so today we have a treat. We have a great panel. I'll just quickly introduce them before we get started. So right here we have Paul. Say hello, Paul. Paul is the owner of Kander Design, a residential interiors and outdoor living designer. He believes that good design can have a profound impact on one's life. And right beside Paul, we have Yeung. Alex is a sales consultant at Centra Windows. He's very, very knowledgeable, primarily focusing on new construction, multifamily projects, and also renovations. Who here in the audience is doing a renovation? Excellent. Okay, and how about a new build? Anyone thinking of a new build? Show of hands. All right, great. Well, we have information regardless of what type of project you have. Alex currently resides in the Fraser neighborhood with his wife and 3 kittens. Cute kittens. Who doesn't love kittens? All right, so let's get started. So we're going to do 15 to 20 minutes of discussion, and then we're going to open up the floor to questions. So let's begin by talking about windows. So obviously, windows make up a huge part of the building envelope or your home. So, and placement of windows can make a huge difference to the comfort and the well-being of the space. So let's just talk about, how do you get more light into your home? Should you add more windows? Where do you put your windows?
Yes. Paul Fraser, Kander Design, and I've been involved in a lot of projects, small residential to full house projects, and getting into that conversation about your windows as soon as possible is definitely a step you want to approach right away. It has such an impact on your overall well-being of it, bringing in that light when we do get it in Vancouver, right? And then also deciding, okay, what's this going to look like for our budgets? We're always talking about budget up front because we want to establish that so we can help you the best. For me, it's also looking at what's our viewpoint from inside the house out, right? And how's that going to affect, our neighbors, and the placement of those windows is important where the permits come into place, because in some instances you cannot have large windows in the side of the house, so we're going to put more at the back of the house. So we have all these conversations up front and early as possible.
Okay, and obviously, depending on where your location is, everybody or every home is going to have a slightly different orientation to the sun. So whether it's north, west, east, south. So can you talk about some of the considerations that you would want depending on the orientation of your building?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for us, we're thinking about, south-facing windows. You really want to consider our eaves, so we're top of those windows, how much we're going to control the light coming in, especially in the summertime. You don't want too much heat gain, which is going to cost you more on cooling. So again, getting involved with a designer, window person, architect, builder right away. You're going to have those great conversations to really consider your comfort, how we're going to shade windows on the south to still allow enough light then to come in the winter as well. You don't want to cover things up too much. We have to consider our windows on the east and the west. So we have the sun rising in the morning. Maybe it's going to impact your sleep patterns. So again, are we doing something with screening out there or window coverings? And again, as the sun sets, are we, considering how much sun is coming into your other room and how that might affect your comfort and also, again, heating costs.
Yeah, I always like the example of the beautiful lake house in Kelowna. We see a lot of those. They have floor-to-ceiling windows, beautiful view of the lake, but the owners have their blinds drawn all day long because it just overheats. So with the technologies that we have built into glass nowadays, we're able to control that solar heat gain so that we can minimize the amount of heat that the sun actually heats up your room. So I always kind of recommend south-facing, west-facing bedrooms, especially. Be a little bit more. Add the extra coating. It's actually not that much because you're already paying for the glass. It's a coating that gets applied to the glass that can help manage the heat. So just little thoughts like that can help balance out how you can best use your space, like a lake house in Kelowna if you have one. Lucky enough to happen.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point. So we're going to dispel some myths about windows today because, windows are actually a very, very technical part of your home. If you think about a home just on a very basic level, you have your walls, which obviously your walls have an insulation value, which is actually called an R value. And then windows, really the insulation factor for a window is actually significantly lower. So if you actually think about windows, they're essentially ginormous holes in your walls. So from an energy efficiency standpoint, it's something that you definitely want to, number one, know about. And secondly, you want to be able to manage that properly. So we're going to share some tips right now about the energy efficiency side of things. Because to your point, it doesn't really matter if you have big windows, if you can't, you constantly have your blinds drawn because of that. So can you maybe share some tips on that?
Absolutely. So especially, I kind of bring the fact that back in with windows, the single pane windows in an aluminum frame, back in the 60s and 70s, that's where the term drafty windows came from. Because when you walk up to a window back then, in the summer it was hot. You walk there in the winter, it's cold. So we developed technology that we applied coatings. It's actually a sputtered silver, to get into the nitty gritty of it, but it's clear enough that you don't notice it, but the heat, it provides insulation and it helps block out. If the sun is directly shining on it, it'll help block out and reflect the sun. So Kathy mentioned R value is something that we hear for insulation in walls, R being resistance value. In windows, we actually look at it the inverse. We call it a U value, and it's a transmissivity of energy, thermal energy through a window. So the lower the U value, the better it is. So the cities, the municipalities are really pushing this kind of energy efficiency. So City of Vancouver being a prime example of that, where they're starting to mandate a U value of 1.22 or lower, which is starting to get that triple glazed territory. So knowing the U values, how they relate, knowing that basics, like a lower U value is better, a higher R value is better. So it's kind of inverse relationship is kind of key to understanding how energy efficiency can be kind of thought of as a whole.
Great tips, Alex. And yeah, we don't want everybody to get super technical about it, but when you actually go and speak with someone like Alex, it's actually very fascinating because there is so much technology that's placed into Windows. You made a comment earlier, Alex, about single versus double glaze. Who's heard of, single glaze, double glaze, triple glaze, those terms of Windows? Okay. And actually there's triple glazed isn't actually necessarily better. Everybody would just automatically think, okay, more glass is better. But that is another myth about Windows. Do you want to shed some light on that, Alex?
Yeah, for sure. Specifically, in energy performance, triple glaze, adding an extra piece of glass and having the capability to support more coatings or surfaces to put coatings on can get you better energy performance. So keeping the cold out of your wormhole in the wintertime and keeping the hot sun out in the summertime. But something that we always hear about in terms of windows is acoustics. So if you live on a big street and you're always hearing the traffic, naturally you think, oh, if I do a triple glaze, add a third piece of glass, it's going to make it better for sound isolation. And that's actually not always the case. So when we take a look at acoustics and how sound waves travel through glass, one is the thickness of glass. So in a double glaze, you have two pieces of glass with dead space in the middle. So something that's really important for preventing the sound from getting through is actually having enough dead space. So when you add a third piece of glass, you're adding more glass, but you're reducing the amount of space where that sound can deaden. So in acoustics, we can actually get equal or better performance in certain configurations of double glazed than in a lot of cases triple glaze. And I deal with it a lot because I work at the multifamily side. So a lot of these condo buildings are on big streets, major corridors. So when we look at a double glazed just glass in general, we start at about 3 millimeters of glass for each pane, and you can get as thick as 6 millimeters. And with sound, each thickness of glass can reduce a certain frequency range. So in general, you like to use dissimilar glass. So in a double glazed window, you might use 6 millimeters and 4 millimeters, and that'll help block out two different frequencies. and you think, okay, that's about 10 millimeters of glass. And then you look at a triple glaze, if you do 444, so 12 millimeters total, is actually not better. So it's kind of reducing the same frequencies 3 times, if you think of it that way. So it's interesting. You get into that mic space.
Get Alex going on the technical side.
I'm going to use a ball or jive.
All right, well, thank you. Let's shift gears a little bit. So what are the benefits of investing in windows? So like there's a lot of conversation now about like energy efficiency, and who here likes to open their windows and have like the fresh air of outside, right? Like who doesn't? So what's really interesting is on the flip side, who here has also heard about high performance homes? Show of hands. So high performance homes, we actually have another panel this afternoon about them. So that would be actually a really great panel. It is the wave of the future in terms of energy efficiency and how homes are built. So one of the premises behind this is that a home is extremely airtight and thus energy efficient, which opens up a whole new conversation, because now a lot of the questions are around, okay, do we want the windows to open? And oh my goodness, what happens if we don't have windows that open in a home? Like, are you going to even get fresh air? So would one of you guys like to shed some light on that?
Perhaps a quick bit on the design side of things, where from my standpoint, I'm approaching a project thinking, I'm in your home and I'm thinking about what are all the we call view corridors when we're dealing with design. This is a view down a hallway, through a bedroom, out of, from a kitchen, looking out a window. These are all what we call view corridors. So when I'm thinking about windows, I'm thinking about, if I look at these windows out here, we have all these transoms and various vertical lines of breakups. So if we're doing a window all of a sudden with no opening spots, I still need to create some type of visual interest. So I might go large in the window, but still bringing in and add a few extra lines in those windows to give a visual interest, but also frame what I'm seeing outside. So there's going to be a lot of consultation, especially in the high performance homes, with the developer and trying to figure out where the windows that can open can be, but then also how we're going to create the nicest view corridor for home.
That actually goes very well with another myth we're going to dispel today. Generally speaking, back in the day, bigger was better windows-wise, right? Like, so the more windows, the better. And obviously, yes, you get all that natural light. But that isn't necessarily the case. We're not saying to design small windows, but the statement, bigger windows are better, isn't necessarily true. Would you guys like to shed some light on that?
Well, I feel like design choices are one thing. Of course, we would like to maximize the amount of light that comes in. But that also gives you having more windows gives more avenue for heat to get in. So one of the examples I like to give, especially for it's hard to quantify solar heat gain, right? When the sun shines in your sliding patio door, you feel that it's warmer, but it's hard to say, okay, how much it is. Well, it's nice that we've had studies that have kind of try and put a number to it. And so for like a standard 6-foot patio door, a sliding patio door, for a 1990s glass technology, the amount of heat that comes in is about 1,800 watts. So you can think of that like, okay, we have a baseboard heater, that's about typically 1,500 watts. So if you have sun shining on your patio door in the summertime, that's like having your heater on every day in the summertime.
You're scorching.
You're melting in your bedroom or wherever you have your patio door. So now, as I kind of brought up, new low-E coatings, low emissivity coatings that help manage the heat, help prevent heat from transferring through the window, and help manage the solar heat gain that when the sun shines through, you can actually reduce that to 600, 700 watts. So it's still going to be warm. And this is where the design choices come into play, but you can at least help manage it. So that's from a window technology standpoint, that's where we're at.
And then that's why I say, sorry, Alex, we're starting to introduce some window coverings that can bring that solar heat gain down a little bit more.
Great. All right. Question for everybody. Who by show of hands likes to save money? Oh, come on. Everybody's hand should be up. All right. So the last note that we're going to talk about is the government. There's actually a lot of rebates and grants that are available to homeowners when it comes to windows. Would you guys like to share that information with our lovely crowd?
Sure. Yeah, as Kathy mentioned, there's a few rebates. There's a federal rebate and provincial rebates available. And it kind of depends on where you're at, and what performance you're looking to get to. So in general, we're looking now, well, the rebates are available to get your performance even better. So right away, they're starting to think triple glaze. So where you might live, you might be okay with a double glazed window, but to get the rebates, you would have to pay for the triple glaze and then they'd give you some money back. They're trying to equalize that split. So it's almost like an EV rebate. So, if your Tesla is $70,000, the government will give you $5,000, $8,000 if you do the provincial as well. But would you have been okay with a $30,000 car in internal combustion engine? Got to compare those. Is an EV better? Is it worth? If you're going that way anyway, sure, you get some money back, but try to look from your perspective whether it's worth it. Now, to talk numbers, the federal government is offering up to $5,000, $250 per window, and the provincial government is offering $100 up to $2,000. So there's $7,000 there potentially. Now, the city of Vancouver is a little bit different because the Vancouver building bylaw has really been pushing energy efficiency. So they're actually basically requiring triple glazed right from the get-go. So the provincial government is not giving any money back if you live in Vancouver, unfortunately. And we get higher property taxes as well. So fun times. Now there is also an income adjusted provincial rebate available that actually is really generous. It covers like $950 per window up to $9,500 for your window package. Now that of course depends on your income. So those are the ones that are available. And of course, if you're ever confused, it's confusing for us too. So always feel free to ask us questions, and then we're happy to help you navigate through that process quite easily on our end. So
Great. Thank you, Alice and Paul. So now we're going to shift the conversation over to the audience and just do a question and answer period. Does anybody have any questions? We were just very thorough. Don't be shy. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you mind just repeating the question, please?
The building I live in was constructed in 1993. We have double glazed aluminum frame windows. We spoke earlier. And I have the building faces south. I'm on the top floor, and it's very hot. What is I realize that if we did get new windows at some point, or if we made some of the windows smaller. For instance, there's a window on the east side that faces a neighboring building where there's also a window, and Elizabeth and I have become friends through the window. But is it how do you can you make a window smaller? I think it might involve getting a development permit or something because you're changing the windows in the. Is that?
Are you in the city of Vancouver?
Yeah.
Yeah, so generally speaking, anything you do inside city of Vancouver, you should get a permit for. In terms of like window changes or anything like that.
Is it hard to change the side? I have this big window, as I'm saying, that faces another window was not a good design idea, maybe. And could I make that window smaller if I replaced it? Is that an onerous task, or?
I'll tackle that here for you, but I'll preface it saying I'm not a residential builder, but been around enough projects to say that yes, absolutely permits for sure, because you're changing the exterior building envelope and the facade and the look of it. Going smaller is technically not hard. We already have the structure in place. The structural that takes the load is in place. So making that opening smaller is more around making then the exterior look cohesive to what's already there, right? So if you had siding that's going vertical and all of a sudden your window is smaller, you have to cover in with new siding, new building envelope wrap, making it sealed. But that's less invasive than if you wanted to make the window larger, then you're getting architectural plan, structural engineer probably involved because now you're making the structure different. So technically speaking, with the right builder, yes, making it smaller is a lot easier. You're still have to get a permit, but you're not changing structure. You're just changing facade and making it look better.
Well, it's not something, I mean, I understand the getting the permit to change when you're changing the look of the building from the outside, but it's not intrusive because it's on the side of the building. So it's just another building next door.
Yeah.
And they should have caught that probably when they were building it. So that I wasn't having, Elizabeth and I could have our privacy more.
Yeah, they've certainly changed the bylaws over the years, right? Lessening how much windows we can put on the sides of the home, so they're not having that problem. But certainly, yeah, any one of our builder friends here could easily, talk to you more about making those windows smaller. It's definitely not as...
What about shifting a window over a little bit? There's
same idea, quite intrusive now all of a sudden, because there is a structure that goes all the way around that window that takes load of the building. If you move that window, you've changed the structure, so they have to really get more invasive, as you will, and change the structure. So it'll be a structural engineer involved, maybe an architect, definitely the builder, and city permits.
So in the city of Vancouver, do we now need to have all triple glazed windows? Is that what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, so the Vancouver building bylaw is sets requirements on the energy performance of the entire home essentially. So windows being an integral part of that. So typically you would go through some kind of energy modeler to model your entire home in terms of looking at the insulation in the walls, the amount of ventilation to have, air conditioning, excuse me, and of course windows. So there's two paths. There's the performance path with which you would go through an energy modeler. There's also a prescriptive path where they're saying, okay, if you don't want to go to a modeler to look at your whole home, all the components of it, you just need to meet these numbers or better. And Windows, one of them being a U value of better than 1.22, which is triple glass.
Yeah, and may I just add something to what Alex said? So all your questions are very, very good questions. And anytime you're doing any sort of renovation or new build, that's why we always encourage working with a team of professionals and experts. There's a ton of them in today's rooms. So this is great information. But as a homeowner, typically you would have either a builder or a designer leading you through this process to answer all your questions, making sure you have proper permits, making sure that your home is going to be high quality after the renovation, and helping you to make those decisions. So one thing I want to point out, Alex, do you mind grabbing that contact directory for Haven? So if you don't already have one of these, this is Haven's contact directory. Thank you. So this actually, thanks, Sonali. So basically, this is a great resource just to help you find any professionals out there, designer, builder, renovators, energy modelers. Feel free to grab a bag. You get a cute little tote bag too at the entrance. Another great resource is Haven's podcast, Measure Twice, Cut Once. Season 5 has just launched. So just make sure to check it out. It's a really popular podcast with over 12,000 downloads. And then, yeah, just to kind of wrap up this panel, just wanted to thank you again, Alex and Paul. Alex and Paul both have booths within this exhibition today. So feel free to reach out to them directly for any specific questions regarding your renovation or your new builds. And lastly, just want to give everybody a friendly reminder that there's an Enter to Win contest. It's just right when you walk into the room on your left. Just make sure that you enter to win a Cuisinart food processor, compliments of Trail Appliances. So thank you so much again for joining us today. Like I mentioned, everybody's going to be on hand afterwards. And enjoy the show and enjoy the beautiful weather. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I should be attended. I would do
Hassan.
on this, this video part of the after to make you swap this ball out for it.